And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. Check out their tournaments over there on their daily fantasy offerings. They give management free tournaments. There are also low management fee tournaments and low entry point tournaments. So if you're trying to figure out DFS, you're new to the game, Yahoo may be a great place to start. Say it over and over again as well. NFL around the corner. Chris Randone and myself, Dan Strafford, with you on this Monday morning 7-game MLB slate. Chris, we didn't talk about this before we started recording, but DK releasing week 1 NFL prices from what I understand, because I got 15 different emails about entering week 1 contests and saying I could get 400 crowns and 700 crowns and 200 crowns if I just entered these contests. But NFL around the corner, how the hell you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, no, I saw the NFL slate, one of them at least, kicked off today. It's like it's too soon, man. It's like we still have quite a bit. AJ Green just went down with a huge injury. There's probably a few more. So I say week 3 of preseason, that's when I'm going to start kind of looking at it.
We'll get along. This is a new relationship, but we'll get along well. I need more information. I'm happy that NFL is around the corner, and I know people love it. I'm a baseball guy first and foremost, so I need to get through baseball. But also, there's a lot of training camp that's going to change so many different things, both from a season-long perspective and from a DFS perspective. So I'm with you. Give me week 3 of the preseason where all the starters are in there for a half or 3 quarters. Then I'll start making some choices on where I'm going. And week 1, everyone knows this in the NFL, is a chalk fest, right? Like everyone sees the prices, the real values are so well known week 1 that it's pretty hard to get off the beaten path, I should say. Everything's mapped out as you get through. But we're here to talk baseball. There were a couple of trades. Toronto really throwing out the white flag, trading Sogard, trading Stroman. The Mets doing what Mets do, bringing in a pitcher when they're trying to deal their pitchers. You were saying before we started recording, maybe they try to now spin Stroman off. Maybe they do that. Maybe they try to deal both Wheeler and Syndergaard. Vargas is probably gone as well. Going to be an interesting one to watch, but we have a 7-game slate here to talk about. We're going to go pitcher by pitcher, just give you our takes on each one. We do have Colorado on this slate with Kenta Maeda versus John Gray in that one, so we'll get to that in a little bit. We start at the top, Chris. Patrick Corbin against the Atlanta Braves, a Braves team that is holding on right now at the top of the NL East, a Washington team that has been one of the best teams in Major League Baseball over the past month and a half to 2 months. Now, this is a Braves team that against lefties is top 10 from a strikeout percentage perspective. They are very good from a power perspective, though, and a WRC+. So we're sort of waiting out power and run production versus K upside for a guy like Corbin. When you look at his matchup, the rest of the slate is 10-8 a price tag you're willing to pay, or do you feel like this is going to be one where you're finding cheaper price points to go for your starting pitching?
I think cash. I think he's fine. He's clearly probably one of the best pitcher on the slate, actually. But I would say in tournaments, definitely going to have some shares. There's probably only 2 batters I like in the Braves lineup. Probably Ozzy Albiz as a one-off, and maybe some Acuna shares. But outside of that, I don't see anything wrong with Corbin, especially at home. I kind of like it.
It will be one to consider here greatly on the year. Corbin with a 20.9% K- walk ratio, 28.5% K percentage. The thing he's done better than most pitchers on the top end of the league is limited home runs, and he's done a great job of it on the year. This is a Braves team with a ton of power against lefties. I just made mention of that on the year. They have a 216 ISO, their active roster, against left-handed pitchers. So it's sort of the rock in a hard place, a movable force, whatever, cliche you want to use, which one wins out. For me, I'll probably just stay away altogether. This will be one where I don't have much Corbin. To be honest, I won't have any Corbin. I probably won't have any Braves. I get one-offs on both sides, and if you're building MME portfolios, by all means. But building hand-built lineups, probably won't have much of either. Caleb Smith against Arizona, another lefty on the mound, another very accomplished lefty on the year. Though for the Diamondbacks, they sit at 19.9% K percentage, a 118 WRC plus, at 217 ISO. Lofty and I have talked about it many times over, Chris, about how damn good this Diamondbacks lineup has been from the right side and against lefties. You talk about no names, Walker and Ketel Marte and some of these guys who we probably on the East Coast, where I'm recording from, don't hear as much about as if we were to live out on the West Coast, deal with the NL West. Any thoughts here on Caleb Smith and how he fits in, or is he in the same sort of mold as Corbin here for you, where maybe some shares, maybe some upside, but maybe not somebody that you're trusting entirely on this slate?
So Caleb Smith has gone up $1,200 since his last start. Really liked him around that 84 to 92 price point. Given the fact that Arizona is really good against lefties, especially on the road, second in ISO, second in WOBA, second in WRC+. I mean, they're an all-around team, actually one of the best hitting teams against lefties in baseball on the road. Paying that high for Caleb Smith, I'd rather just shoot up $200 more to pay for Corbin. So I just don't see it, especially with the team as good as they are from the right side. I just don't see myself paying 10-6.
Yep, and I think that's a great point on this slate, trying to figure out this top of the price point pool when it comes to DK. We'll look at Yahoo a little bit. I'll check in on FanDuel prices as well before we go, just to get a Chris's take and get a word in here on those. Paddack, Smith, and Corbin is going to be your decision point, right? This is where you're going to be starting a lot of your lineup building and trying to understand exactly how all of these pitchers come together. You look at the Diamondbacks against lefties. They are down at, as I said, 19.9%. Caleb Smith on the year has been very solid, has kept the walks down. He's at 22.5%. He's at 8.5% walk ratio. But unlike Corbin, gives up a ton of power. It's a 1.60 home runs per 9. The righty power here for Diamondbacks definitely in play for me. I'll probably stay away from Smith as well. I just think these are two matchups at the top end that I'm not a huge fan of and ones that I'll want to stay away from. Now we get to an arm next in Chris Paddack matchup with the Orioles. I think I saw a stat, and I will admit I was out to dinner with my wife and 3 kids. And when that happens, Chris, I know you're not there quite yet. When you're out with 3 kids, your attention's somewhat divided. It's not exactly like you're staring at the TV and you know everything that's said. I believe the Orioles are on a major league streak for multiple home run games in a row. I think they're at 10, maybe 11. I'll double check the stat as we talk through this game. But this is a team that we all thought was dead to start the year. This is a team we targeted over and over again from a pitching perspective, but they've been respectable. Not saying they're world beaters, not saying this is a team that you'll put up against the Yankees or Red Sox or the Dodgers or the Brewers, but this is a team that has been more and more respectable as the year has gone on. Against righties on the season, their active roster, making sure we're checking off the right boxes over there on FanGraphs or wherever we're looking at stats, they're a 23.2% K percentage, but a 189 ISO and a 96 WRC plus. From where they started, much better than they were. Paddack, though, is electric when he's on. He's also made point that he's trying to come after Pete Alonso for Rookie of the Year. He made a very big statement about that he wants that to be a goal for himself. Paddack, similar price points here, trying to figure out exactly where we go at the top end. Do you like Paddack more, less, or about the same as the 2 more expensive pitchers over on DK?
So the thing with Paddack is definitely has electrifying stuff. Pretty decent K rate, a little bit under 27%. The only thing is he was a little bit more dominant in the beginning of the year. And then as of late, he had some really good starts. And I want to see more of that. But seeing his price at 10.2, especially how hot the Orioles are right now, it's weird saying that, but they are hitting the ball fairly well. I don't want to go ahead and pay 10.2 for Paddack, even though he's at home, even though it's a pitcher's park. I just can't get myself there at paying 10.2. I'd rather look at some, lower tier prices, or once again, Corbin's not that higher. Maybe I'll just go ahead and pivot to that. But once again, these 10,000 guys, it's really hard to justify the price.
I want to double check here as I check in on FanDuel's pricing. They have Dinelson Lamet listed as the San Diego Padres starter. So we are recording Sunday night, full disclosure. So I'm going to double check and make sure we have the right starter. DK has currently Chris Paddack listed. As we move on, going to check on MLB.com and check a couple of other sources, make sure we have who the starter is to get the right price points and the right analysis for you all. But we'll go to the next pitcher, DK pricing as currently listed. And that's Sonny Gray. Now, Sonny Gray is somebody that at the beginning of the year, you can go back and check the receipts. For me, I was half joking, half serious, probably more 75% serious, 25% joking, that Sonny Gray would be a Cy Young candidate. I thought Gray out of New York, head case wise, would be good. Also, he's a talented pitcher that I think has been maligned from a DFS perspective, and I liked him a lot. Now, has he lived up to that hype? No, definitely not. But he's shown a great slider, a great breaking ball that has been death to lefties. He has been fantastic against left-handed batters, but he gets a Pittsburgh team here that doesn't really strike out a bunch, doesn't have a ton of lefties that K a bunch. He's at 9,400. We're going to have to start finding pitchers we love, or maybe we don't, but we're going to have to start finding pitchers we're going to roster. How do you feel about Gray on this slate against the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah, I mean, Gray, 28, 29% K rate. You made a great point. Pittsburgh's kind of stingy at the plate. I think they have about 7 guys who are striking out under 17% of the time. So it's hard to look at a matchup like that when a team doesn't strike out as much as you would like against a pitcher who does have strikeout stuff. But I do like his price, to be honest with you. I think him being at 94 gives you a little bit of roster construction flexibility. And, he's been good. So it's hard to go away from someone who definitely has had some really good starts. And once again, his price is down. It was in the 10K range. I think this is an opportunity where I don't mind having shares of him, especially in a multi-entry tournament.
All right. And I think, as everyone knows, over on Awesemo.com, one of the big things that Alex and the team have done is come up with ownership projections. And there are some other sites that have it. I don't know they're as accurate as ours. But when it comes to MME or tournament play, ownership matters so much in baseball. It is such an important part of how you're constructing lineups. So if you want to be a member and you want to check out those ownership projections, you need to sign up using the promo code EARLYBIRD. One, that gets us here on the Early Bird a nice pat on the back, which is always nice. But it also gets you 50% off. So that gets you 50% off your first month. Then you pay full from there. As always, there are other offerings throughout the year. You can also go over to Awesemo_com, our Twitter handle, to check out the different giveaways we have going each and every day. Follow Awesemo MLB, Awesemo NFL as well. So I'm with you on Gray. I think it's sort of, again, you're going to have to start weighing out in these matchups, which do you think has more upside? The K upside of the pitcher or the stinginess, as you use the word, of the batters? And I feel like Gray's breaking ball here could win the day. Now, is that a 12 strikeout performance? No, but an 8 strikeout performance, a 7 strikeout performance over 6 2/3, I think is a legitimate stat line you could see. And if you're fading, and I mean that as underweight against the field, Paddack, Smith, and Corbin, I think Gray is a nice starting point for any lineup construction. Up next is Dallas Keuchel, who decided to go out and strike out 12 guys last time out. And Keuchel, somebody I liked for the Braves. I thought it was a good pickup, but I did not expect that number over 4 starts, let alone 1 start, when it comes to Keuchel and how he approaches pitching. One, I think that's an absolute aberration, not something we're going to see again. But what do you make of his matchup here with Washington? They have some power bats, obviously. The sinker may not work, and he could get bombed, but has some upside. How do you see 8,800 for Keuchel on DK?
Yeah, I mean, his last start, very impressive. Put up 30K or 30.5 fantasy points. But the thing is I actually like Washington here, believe it or not. They're one of the best hitting teams at home against lefties. Also present a lot of power against lefties as well. And I think this is a matchup where going into Washington, I kind of like the Washington bats rather than Keuchel. So I don't think I'll see myself getting there.
Yep, I will stay away from Keuchel here. It is a little bit of recency bias, simply thinking that a 12K performance is going to get him overweight versus what I think he should be owned. So I will check out those ownership percentages I was just talking about, not to shill too hard for Awesemo's product, but I think that is worthwhile here to see if folks jump on here that shouldn't be. And the ownership gets a little bit blown out at 8,800 when he had that big a performance. I will point out as we're recording, and this will all be cleared out by the time most of you listen to this podcast in time on Monday morning, but MLB.com has Paddack, DK has Paddack, Yahoo has Lamet, so does FanDuel. I'm assuming DK's feed is a little bit faster, and has gotten the feed from the right starts. I'm going to take another pass through and check some news sources to see if we have an announcement about Paddack v. Lamet, but we'll get to that momentarily.
ESPN has Paddack starting as well.
Okay, so that makes sense as far as the news filtering down. Up next, we get Brad Keller, Merrill Kelly. Keller and Merrill Kelly, not easy to say back-to-back. And then you have Barea at 7,200. Keller is a guy that we've rostered before. Toronto's a team we've targeted before. If I were to say to start the year, meaning back in April, that Brad Keller would be 8,400 on any given slate, probably wouldn't think about rostering him. But the way DK pricing has gone all year from a pitching perspective and the matchup, Keller seems like a decent option here. We'll run through some of the numbers, but is Keller somebody in this mid-tier that's on your radar, Chris?
Man, I mean, you said it right. I couldn't really ever fathom thinking I'd be paying 8,400 for Keller, but he is facing a Toronto team who does strike out a lot against righties, especially on the road. They're top 10 in the league at 25%. And the thing with Keller is he doesn't give up a lot of power. He's only given up 10 home runs on the year. I mean, that's fairly low compared to a lot of other pitchers, especially on this slate. And I think he's in a matchup where also Sogard's out of the lineup now, who is a stingy hitter who likes to get on base with little pesky hits. So this could be an interesting matchup to want to roster him. I need to look at obviously ownership projections and see kind of where he's at. But 8,400, if he can fit, definitely might play around with him a little bit, but he's not on my radar as maybe the next guy that we're going to talk about.
Yep, that makes sense to me here for Keller. The thing I want to point out is Chris just made mention of that home run rate, and it is minuscule. It is 0.68 home runs per 9. Absolutely dynamic, except when you consider that he's only striking out 16.6% of batters, and he's walking 10.2%. So that's K-minus walk of 6.3%, which explains a lot more of the home run per 9. You look at the contact percentages, he's giving up contact. Now, is it a ton of hard contact? No. And so he's a fine major league pitcher. When it comes to DFS, you're going to struggle unless he's going that 7+ innings where you're trying to get those whip stats on the different sites. Quality start over on FanDuel will come into play for someone like a Brad Keller. Now, on this slate, pointing out on FanDuel, he is 8,400. So he is your fourth most expensive pitcher on FanDuel. I will stay away from him there simply because there's enough downside from the power department where I think he could have a couple of problems here with the Toronto Blue Jays to have a poor outing. We'll talk about FanDuel. We'll sort of run through FanDuel pricing quickly as well as Yahoo before we close. Merrill Kelly is up next, has Miami. We've targeted Miami many times over. It's in Miami. We know how good a pitcher's park that is. Is Merrill Kelly on your radar for this slate?
He is. And if it were any other team, I would probably say no, because he does have a 14.2% home run to fly ball rate, which is more than the average and severely high. But he's facing a team that we do like to target, as you mentioned. And I feel like he is more powerful in the situation as compared to the bats of the Marlins. Looking at it, I would say, they're a top 5 team in strikeouts. They're striking out over 26% of the time against righties at home, pitcher's ballpark, and that's something that's important. So I would say that, yeah, I'm going to have a lot of shares of Merrill Kelly.
So I'm going to have to ask, is that a ringtone or a random video playing somewhere?
No, that's not me. I heard the same thing.
Huh.
Yeah. I heard that last time too, and I didn't want to say anything because I was like, I don't know what that is. But
I wonder if it's coming through the recording. For those of you who are listening, we're both getting some sort of interference. I don't have anything playing. My phone is muted, so we're gonna research. We're gonna find out what that is. I hope it came through the recording, because otherwise we're gonna both sound really crazy when this goes out. But nonetheless,
my phone's in the other room. But as I was mentioning, I like Merrill Kelly here. I like the price just because of the matchup. I really like it. I like it more than Keller. So I think that here, 8,200, I think it's fair. On FanDuel, he's 7,800. He's also less than Keller there and less than Keuchel. So that gives you less flexibility for roster construction. So it's the matchup. Marlins are not good. And whenever you could target them, I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think that is more than an astute observation. He is cheaper across the board than Brad Keller. So if you're doing a 1v1, is Merrill Kelly talented? He has some upside, maybe over the length of his career to be a 3 or a 4 starter in a rotation. Maybe. Keller, maybe about the same. On this slate specifically, I like Kelly a lot more, and I think the strikeout upside is very much in his favor. So I will lean that way for sure as we go through. A few more pitchers to get through as we talk. I will point out, again, Paddack is listed on ESPN, as Chris pointed out, on MLB, on DK, and then it is Lamet pointed out on Yahoo and FanDuel. I assume it will get pointed to Paddack shortly. I'm going to take one more Google search to make sure I'm on board there. We have Barea. Then we get to Coors, Maeda, and Gray. Any interest, I should say. Well, I guess there has to be in Jaime Barea here against Detroit. Detroit's a pretty bad team. Barea, though, has struggled mightily on the year with his ERA, whip, and those counting stats that so often doom you on a site like DK.
I mean, Detroit's second worst team in baseball on the road against righties when it comes to striking out and also power. The thing with Barea, though, is, I mean, he has almost a 9K per 9 strikeout rate. And to be honest with you, those numbers going against one of the teams that strike out the most, kind of like it. I know that he does have a really horrible ERA, and he is prone to get knocked around. But if you look at a few of his starts, I mean, he's been consistent, only giving up, 1 run, solo shots. And I'll take that all day, especially as against an offense who struggles severely.
Yep. I think as you talk through it and as I dive into some of the peripheral stats when it comes to K percentage and WRC plus and ISO for the Tigers, Barea checks out nicely. Like, this is a situation where, given a little bit of leash, meaning some walks here or there and some ability to get deeper into this game, we might see some decent 16 to 20 point upside for Barea at 93 pitches last time out. He is 4-3 on the year when you're talking about wins, quality starts. That might be harder to get to. He does give up some earned runs from time to time, but I guess the biggest wart on his resume is 2 games. It's a game against Seattle with 10 earned runs on 9 hits, and then the 7 earned runs against Kansas City in 1 2/3. That's going to balloon an ERA, and you want to talk context when it comes to analysis. And so ERA, whip, these are all counting stats that are not exactly indicative of what's going to happen next. They're reactive, not predictive stats. But you can very clearly see where he's been harmed on this year by bad outings. This would seem like at 7,200 on DK, over on Yahoo, he checks in at $32. FanDuel, you're taking a little bit more of a leap of faith, but he's 7,200. He might end up being most owned. I don't want to say SP1, but he might be the sort of guy who becomes most owned or highest ownership because of those numbers. Chris, would you agree that maybe when we see ownership percentages just before lock, that Barea is up there when it comes to ownership on across all the sites?
Yeah, I think on DraftKings too specifically, he'll be the top owned, if not second top owned, because you're looking for an SP2 no matter what. And I think a lot of people will pivot him because his price point is just justifies that it's an okay play with given the matchup.
All right, how are you feeling about Coors? I don't want to belabor pitching analysis when it comes to Coors Field, but we do have to talk about it here. Obviously, Maeda and Gray, both very good pitchers. I think Maeda may grade out a little bit better than John Gray over time, but John Gray has shown a ton of upside at times in his professional career. We can go through some numbers, but 68, 6,600 respectively. Are those cheap enough price points for you, Chris, on a Coors slate when the temperatures are rising to have some speculative percentage points of them, or will you just stay away from pitching altogether in Coors Field?
Yeah, I think this is a great hedge play. If you're going to have shares of Coors tomorrow, which everyone probably will, it's always a place you want to target. They're so cheap that they have such great upside given their price points. Both pitchers can definitely strike out batters, and you're looking at a Colorado team who strikes out one of the most against righties as well. Now, they have tremendously different reverse splits. I'm talking Colorado away and at home. But Media's got good stuff, like you mentioned, and he's 6,800. And if you have a pitcher who's 6,800 who is in a matchup where he could definitely get strikeouts, and if he doesn't get rocked, not only could he hit value, but it could be an interesting play for the night.
Yeah, I think the big one there for me is, again, what you're playing. If you're mass multi-entering, if you're figuring that out, I think Meta and Gray firmly become at least part of the discussion. Looking at quick numbers here, making sure I'm up to date over on right-handed pitchers. You have the Rockies at 22.7% strikeout percentage, but just not a ton of run production when it comes against righties, even at home, 85 WRC plus. And this really speaks to taking Arenado and Story out of their comfort zones. They're just gigantic players against left-handed pitchers. Get my head straight here. Left-handed pitchers. You do have Charlie Blackmon. You have some other names there, but no one that you're really fearing. And I think Meta has enough upside to be a part of your player pool, meaning if you're on Fantasy Cruncher or any other sort of a lineup construction app, our lineup builder over on Awesemo.com, you don't take them out of your player pool. You should see where your projection has them, see where Awesemo and Alex and the rest of the team have them projected at, and see exactly how your lineup builds come together. The price isn't necessarily prohibitive for either of these guys. Rest of the way, we have Lyles, Pannone, Zimmerman. It looks like Yacobonis is our opener for the Orioles. I haven't seen a long reliever listed as of yet. Does Lyles at least enter into the conversation against Cincinnati at a cheap price point, or do you feel like this bottom end of pitching, 6,400 and cheaper, is sort of the also-rans and guys that we're going to be targeting against?
Yeah, I mean, Lyles is, I guess, interesting if you want to say it. I mean, he does have a 25% K rate, which is definitely higher than a few pitchers on this slate, especially who are priced higher. But it's going to be difficult, especially in that ballpark. The weather's going to be hot. Cincinnati can hit the ball at home, and 6,200 is just, I don't know. I just don't like Lyles in this situation, so I probably won't have any of him at all. Maybe a few, just because I might need a cheap SP2 on DraftKings to fit in.
Yeah, if you're someone who believes in over-unders, which why not? Vegas does a pretty good job making money off of them. Colorado and the Dodgers are at 12.5, with the Dodgers minus 135 on the money line. So not a huge favorite for Meta. I'd assume that would break down at, what is that, 6.2 and 6 flat, or 6.4 and 6 flat when it comes to their individual implied totals. And then the Reds and Pirates, talking about Lyles, it's minus 175 for Cincinnati, 9.5 over under for the game. So Cincinnati favored a little bit more there. Lyles, I think, will be part of my player pool, but somebody I'm not overly comfortable going to, is what it comes down to. Probably somebody I'm going to try to X out as much and as often as possible. Tons of power in that Cincinnati lineup. I won't make this caveat, which I've made every year of doing any sort of podcast when it comes to DFS. It is MLB trade deadline week. So be prepared for any research you do during the day to blow up because a trade happens. And remember, these sites do not pivot quickly. They do not get these players to the new teams. They are not able to figure out the stat feeds fast enough. So just be aware that this could all turn on its head. Treat it like the NBA. Treat it as if, you're building lineups during the day, you're trying to understand matchups, you're trying to do what you're doing, but be around for lineup lock, because it's not set and forget like it may be in May or June, though we have seen a rash of scratches, it seems, over the past few weeks in Major League Baseball that is akin to the NBA. Chris, from a stack perspective or offenses you like, which pitchers are you most likely to stack against? Obviously, we do have Coors Field on this one, so we want to target that one. And I assume, and not to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong, but the Angels against Jordan Zimmerman would be a team you would want to target. Which offenses do you like the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Zimmerman will definitely be someone a lot of people target. The only thing, I mentioned this last time in his matchup, I think it was against Toronto, where Toronto was heavily owned.
Yep.
Zimmerman doesn't give up a ton of power.
Yep.
Not a lot of home runs. He gives up really just singles, to be honest with you. I think before that Toronto game, he had given up 7 doubles all year, but just a lot of singles. And he's a ground ball pitcher. And so this is interesting because I see a lot of people who are going to probably go towards the Angels lineup. But outside Trout and Ohtani, there's really not much power there. So they might probably score some runs, but will it be enough to give you that opportunity to win tournaments? I don't think so. So I don't know if I'll probably be as much as the field on the Angels as probably ownerships will say come when projections come out.
All right. Any more offenses you target or any one-offs that when you first opened up this slate, you said, hey, I this pitcher I know I want to target with this guy, or this offense I know may not be as owned, but is one I like to go to? A shorter slate, 7 games, so may not be as bountiful as often, but anybody that you want to mention before we say so long?
Yeah, I think Nationals are in a great spot. They will be one of my highest owned teams. I like Arizona on the road against Caleb Smith as well. Coors definitely will have a lot of exposure to. And I think I might have a few one-offs such as Renfroe and Reyes and Machado at home against Baltimore.
Well, there you have it. You can find Chris Rendon over on Twitter at Chris Rendon. That's same for me, at Dan Strafford. See how that works? We are our own brands. We just use our name. Slightly different vantage points to get there, but we both use that pretty straightforward. You can find Osmo at Osmo_com. And of course, it's Osmo DFS for Alex if you're looking for him over there on the Twitter machine. You can find the early bird on iTunes, Stitcher, across all your podcasting apps. You can also find us on YouTube. So if you're watching over there, make sure you're subscribing, that you're liking the videos, you're leaving comments, you're clicking that bell to make sure you get notifications of when we're going live, because we have live shows every day. We have the MLB strategy show in the morning, then we have the deeper dive, and we have live before lock. That is all free in front of the paywall. You get so many great analysts there. That's Jake. That is EMAC. That is Josh, Adam, Lofty. Chris makes some appearances there as well. You get Alex thrown into the mix from time to time. NBA, NFL, we're going to have a ton of content there as well. So you'll want to be in on that each and every day. And as I said, if you want to be a member, and you should, to Osmo Premium Plus, that gets you in for all the projections, all of the articles, everything you could want over on the site. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, and that gets you 50% off your first month. With that said, tomorrow you get EMAC, you get Adam on the early bird. Tomorrow morning on the MLB strategy show on Monday, that would be Adam and Josh. With that said, best of luck on Monday's slate. We'll see you next time right here on the Osmo DFS Early Bird.